Hi, my name is Rob and I welcome you in my tutorial about the modal arpeggios. Now before we start off, I think it would be best if you already know something about the modes. And if you haven't been acquainted with this subject, please watch my video, The Modes Crystal Clear. Now to create modal music in general or to improvise over modal music, you'll have to grasp the essence of the mode in order to let it sound modal. Now maybe you want to emphasize the notes or chord structures that outline the characteristics of the mode. And you can do that by coming up with a chord sequence that captures the heart of the mode. Or while improvising, you'd like to play the right scale, and within that scale you want to play the characteristic note for that particular mode. Now I like to call that characteristic note for a certain mode a trigger note, because it triggers your ear to believe we are in a mode. To know which note the characteristic note in a mode is, we should know what the tritone interval is in this mode. Because this interval always bears a specific note that outlines the mode. By the way, a tritone is an interval that spans 6 half steps. It's also called an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. It's a very dissonant interval, and you'll find this in every dominant 7 chord, for instance. Now, if you want to learn more about this interval and its very interesting applications, you can watch my video about tritone substitutions. Now, in this figure I've marked all the tritone intervals and the modes of the major scale. The tritone in these scales is the augmented fourth, which is formed by the notes F, B and B, F. Now, as you can see in the diagram, one of the notes is the characteristic note. In the Ionian scale, that would be the note F and B. Now, in the Dorian mode, the raised sixth is a trigger note for this mode, and this is the note B. In the Phrygian mode, the characteristic note is the flattened second degree, which is the note F. And in the Lydian mode, the raised fourth degree is the modal trigger note. In the Mixolydian mode, that would be the note F, which is the flattened seventh. In the Aeolian mode, the characteristic note would be the minor sixth, which is the note F in this case. And the Locrian mode, the diminished fifth, is the most characteristic note. And this would be one way to determine the characteristic note for a certain mode. Now, many guitarists who start to explore modal music will play a diatonic scale over a modal chord sequence, like Mixolydian scale over a Mixolydian progression, a Lydian scale over a Lydian progression, and maybe here and there a pentatonic superimposition. And all this is perfectly fine. In fact, I did a video about these subjects earlier. But there's another way to capture a mode when you are improvising. And that is the so-called modal arpeggio. Now, I'll take it that you are familiar with playing arpeggios more or less, but you certainly do not have to be a sweep-picking genius to employ this technique. Now, if you're not familiar with arpeggios at all, maybe you should try other videos first to learn arpeggios in their basic form. But I leave that life-changing decision to you. Unlike with the scale runs, what a great deal of rock-orientated guitarists are playing, I guess, the improvisation with the use of arpeggios opens up your soloing and sound much more melodic and cohesive than playing only scale runs. And that goes for simple triad arpeggios, but also for more advanced arpeggios like the modal ones. Now, to fully master and understand modal arpeggios, I'm going to take different approaches. In this video, I'll show you the first and most traditional approach. In the next video, I will make an addition by showing different ways to create modal arpeggios. And each approach has its own benefit and limitations, of course. First, we have to find out what modal is about modal arpeggios. Now, for that we're going to look at the major scale. And for practical reasons we're not going to use the C major scale, which is often jokingly called the college scale. But instead we're going to use the G major scale because the root sits nice and easy on the lowest string quite in the beginning of the neck, just so it's practical. Now we create a G major arpeggio by stacking thirds from the scale all up to the 13th note. Now we've played all the notes from the G major key by this. G, B, D, F sharp, A, C and E. An arpeggio with these notes would look and sound like this. Now within this major 13 arpeggio, there are other arpeggios present, like the B minor 7 arpeggio, the D dominant 7 arpeggio, the F sharp half diminished arpeggio, and the A minor 7 arpeggio. Now when playing the A minor 7 arpeggio, you're playing all the upper extensions of the G major chord, the 9th, the 11th and 13th. Now listen to this beautiful colored sound when playing an A minor 7 arpeggio over a G major 7 chord. I'll start at the G to let it melt more with the G major chord. Now we could do exactly the same for the chord on the second note of the G major scale, the note A. So we'll get A, C, E, G, B, D and F sharp. Now the scale is the G major scale, but the root is unmistakable the note A. By this we have created an A Dorian mode because the Dorian mode is the second mode of the major scale. In other words, the A Dorian scale starts on the second note of the G major scale. The raised sixth, the F sharp in A Dorian, is the characteristic note in this mode. Now let's have a go with this arpeggio. Now pay attention to the F sharp in this arpeggio. It's the raised 6th degree and the characteristic note in the A Dorian mode. Especially this note will make this arpeggio sound modal. So this arpeggio results in a Dorian modal sound. Now what a nice Dorian sound, right? And we can find multiple arpeggios in this comprehensive A minor 13 arpeggio, like the C major 7 chord, the E minor 7 chord, the G major 7 chord and the B minor 7 chord. Now the last one contains for the Dorian mode, characteristic raised 6th degree, the F sharp. So playing a B minor 7 arpeggio over an A minor 7 chord would evoke a Dorian sound in the blink of an eye. Also, on the third note of the G major scale, we can project this system creating the Phrygian mode, which is the third mode of the major scale. Now, playing all the stacked thirds starting this time on the note B, we'll get the notes that belong to the B Phrygian mode, the B minor scale with a flattened 2nd degree. The flattened 2nd degree, the note C in B Phrygian, is the characteristic note in this mode. Now keep track of the note C in this arpeggio. It's the flattened 2nd degree and thus the characteristic note in the B Phrygian mode. And especially this note will make the arpeggio sound modal. So this arpeggio results in a Phrygian modal sound. Now again in this B minor 7 flat 9 13 arpeggio, other arpeggios occur, like the D7 arpeggio, the F sharp half diminished arpeggio and the A minor 7 arpeggio, and the C major 7 arpeggio. Now the last one contains the characteristic flat 2nd degree of the B Phrygian mode, namely the note C, and the tonic of the mode, the note B. So all of these arpeggios can be played over a B minor chord or B drone to create the dark B Phrygian sound, but especially the C major 7 chord works like a charm. Now let's take a look at the fourth mode of the G major scale, the C Lydian mode. When stacking thirds on top of the note C in the key of G major, we'll get a C major 13 chord, like this. C, E, G, B, D, F sharp, A and C. The raised 4th degree, the F sharp in C Lydian, is the characteristic note in this mode. Take a look at the F sharp in this arpeggio. It's the raised 4th degree and thus the characteristic note in the C Lydian mode. And this particular note will make this arpeggio sound modal. So this arpeggio results in a Lydian modal sound. In this arpeggio we see an E minor 7, G major 7 and B minor 7 chord and a D dominant 7 chord. Now the G major and D 7th chord contain the characteristic raised fourth in the Lydian mode, the F sharp in this case. So instead of playing the whole C major 13 arpeggio, we can split it up in smaller pieces by playing the G major 7 arpeggio or the D dominant 7 arpeggio over the C drone or C major chord. Now I think you're getting pretty familiar with this way of creating modal arpeggios by now, right? So let's have a go at the Mixolydian mode. Now this mode starts on the 5th note of a major scale, and in this case that would be the note D. If we stack thirds up to the 13th, we'll get a dominant 13 chord, with the notes D, F sharp, A, C, E, G and B. The flattened 7th degree, the note C in D Mixolydian, is the characteristic note in this mode. Pay attention to the note C in this arpeggio. It's the flattened 7th degree and the characteristic note in the D Mixolydian mode. Especially this note will make this arpeggio sound modal. So this arpeggio will result in a Mixolydian modal sound. Hidden in this arpeggio we see the F sharp half diminished chord, the A minor 7 chord and the C major 7 chord. Now all of these arpeggios contain the characteristic note for the Mixolydian mode, namely the flat 7th degree. In D Mixolydian the note C is the flattened 7th degree. Just like with all the other modes, we can now play separate arpeggios as an alternative to playing the whole D dominant 13 arpeggio. Now for the second last we are dealing with the immense popular Aeolian mode, to which lots of people refer to as the minor scale or minor key. In the G major scale, the Aeolian mode starts on the 6th note. In this case that would be the note E, resulting in the E Aeolian mode. So let's stack some thirds. E, G, B, D, F sharp, A and C. The minor 6th degree, the note C in E Aeolian, is the characteristic note in this mode. Especially this note will make this arpeggio sound modal, so this arpeggio results in an Aeolian modal sound. Now the last and probably the most awkward one is the Locrian mode that starts on the 7th note of a major scale. In our G major scale that would be the note F sharp, creating the F sharp Locrian mode. A minor scale with a flattened 2nd degree and flattened 5th degree. Now if we stack thirds on top of this F sharp, on top of the F sharp in the G major scale, we have created an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 flat 9 13 chord with the notes F sharp, A, C, E, G, B and D. The flattened 2nd degree and the diminished 5th degree, the notes G and C in F Locrian, are the characteristic notes in this mode. Now pay attention to the note C in this arpeggio. It's the diminished 5th and the characteristic note in the F sharp Locrian mode. Especially this note will make this arpeggio sound modal, so this arpeggio results in a Locrian modal sound. The note G, the flattened 2nd degree, and the note C, the flattened 5th degree, are the characteristic notes for this mode. Now as you can see, there are multiple smaller arpeggios hidden. The A minor 7 and the C major 7 chord are the arpeggios that contain these two characteristic notes. By playing these arpeggios, we also evoke the Locrian sound. So this is a way to create modal arpeggios. Like I said before, there are more ways to establish a modal sound in arpeggios. I'll show you that in the next video. I hope this video is useful for you and that it will help you to grow as a musician. Now, if you like these videos and learn from these videos, please consider supporting me through my Patreon page. Or subscribe, like and comment, and I would appreciate it very much too. Bye for now and greets from the Netherlands.